Happy Balaram Jayanti to everybody. So we're going to get started, and after I give a small explanation about Balaram's appearance and the Tattva of Balaram, then we are going to have an Abhishek for Balaram. So welcome everybody. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Malaba Giri Badadare Gopi Jana Balaba Giri Badadare Yasodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjahuna Yasodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tera Vanachare Yamuna Tera Vanachare Jayurad Umadhuva Kunda Bihare Jayurad Madhuva Kunda Bihare Gopi Jana Malaba Giri Badudhahure Gopi Jana Balaba Giri Badudhahure Yasodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yasodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tera Vanachade Yamuna Tera Vanachare Jayu Randu Madhuva Kunya Bihare Jai Radha Madhova Kunya Vihare Gopi Jana Balaba Giri Badudhahure Gopi Jana Balaba Yidi Vadadhare Yidi Vadadhare Yasodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tera Vanachari Yamuna Tera Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhura Kunda Bihare Jayo Radha Madhura Kunda Bihare Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravidikacharya also Teta Satashi Shimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Charanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anandakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shyam Mukunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Maturadam Ki Jai Jagannatha Swami Ki Jai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Shrimati Tulasi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prastaya Bhutale, Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamani, Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharni Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschacha Deja Tarane. So Omagana Timadanda Shah Gananjana Shilakaya Chakshur Unmiritam Yena Tasmai Shigurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. So we want to wish everybody a happy Balarama Jayanti appearance. So sometimes it's said that Balaram was born on this day, but actually we're talking about appearance, Jayanti. Because as we know, that even for the soul there's no birth or death. Of course, the soul is experiencing what it or he or she thinks is birth or death. But as far as the Supreme Personality of Godhead is concerned, he ajopi sana vyatma bhutanam isharopi swam prapating swamatishtaya sambhavami apamaya. There's no question of taking a body. He is his body, he is his feelings, he is his mind. We talked about this morning, so some of you are going to hear a little repetition, but it's important to establish what we call tattva. Tattva means basically the category, or as described this morning, ontology of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Also, there's other tattvas, jiva tattva, the nature of the jiva soul, which is ourselves, part and parcel of Krishna. There's a Shakti Tattva. There's many different categories under Tattva, but the main thing about Tattva is that it's an eternal category. Everybody understands that. So, anyway, so as far as Vishnu Tattva is concerned, Vishnu Tattva is a general category that refers to Krishna and his various expansions, his Vishnu Tattva expansions, which are called Swamsa. That means his own expansions. We are Vivinamsha, which means we're jiva souls, we're part and parcel of Krishna. In one sense, we're expansions of Krishna. But in another sense, we don't have the power. We're very tiny, insignificant entities. So anyway, so as far as the Vishnu Tattva expansions or manifestations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there's a very interesting verse in the Brahma Samhita, which we usually cite on these occasions. Advaita, Achyuta, Anadir, Anantarupamadhyam, Purana Purusham, Navayovanam cha Vedeshu Durlabam Atma Bhaktu, Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Vajami. So as far as all these different manifestations of Godhead, and we're talking about Krishna, Balaram, Vasudev, Sankarshan, Prajuna, Aniruddha, then there's the second expansion, the third expansion, the portions of plenary portions, and portions of plenary portions. All these personalities are Advaita. Now, Advaita doesn't mean we're all one, but it means they're all the same person, which is amazing. So Krishna and Balaram are the same person, but the same person acting differently in different roles or circumstances. Prabhupada gives a sort of a example of how we can understand this in the material world. In the material world, we have different aspects of our personality that we display in different circumstances, right? Like someone at home may be married, someone at work manifests another aspect of his personality. He may even have a different work name. Someone in the temple has a spiritual name. Just like even myself, I have a spiritual name. bkgoswami Goswami. But when I speak to the plumber, he refers to me in terms of my legal name. Why do I have to speak to a plumber? Because sannyasi has to be ready to do anything. Even fix the plumbing if necessary. Unfortunately, I don't have too many people who can assist me with that. So anyway, basically, I'm the same person. Whether I'm working with the plumber, whether I'm working with a disciple, whether I'm working as a servant of the deities. Of course, I'm always a servant of the deities. Whether I'm bathing my deities at home, I have little deities of Govardhan Shilas, or whether I'm communicating with my relatives, and there's different names, but I'm the same person. And I act a little differently. Like I try to give the plumber a little Krishna consciousness, but I'm not going to give him a class. I say, please sit down, Bill, and listen to the Bhagavatam. And he said, well, I'll have to charge you $35 an hour for this. So anyway, there's different relationships. But the difference between me and Krishna, one difference, I mean, there's a lot of differences. But one difference is that I can only do one thing at one time. I'm not too good at multitasking. I can't give a Bhagavatam class and speak to the plumber simultaneously. It's not possible. But Krishna can do unlimited things in unlimited avatars or expansions simultaneously. And not only that, he can interact interact with his expansions. And then under the influence of Yogamaya, Yogamaya is the internal potency of the Lord, then it appears that Krishna in one expansion is not aware of what Krishna is doing in another expansion, or Krishna is doing in his original form, because the original aspect of Krishna, the original personality of Godhead, is Krishna. Ete chamsa kalak pumsa. Krishna's too, Bhagawan Swayam. It's interesting. Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. So he's the complete manifestation of the same person. The most intimate manifestation of the same person. So they should come in, and better people use the other doors anyway. So Krishna is the complete manifestation of the same person, God. And he has unlimited names. Nam Namakari Bahoda, Nija Sarva Shaktis. And all these names, what? He's invested his transcendental potency in. And according to which name of Krishna you chant, whether you chant the name of Lord Nrsimha, Balaram, then you're interacting with a different, well, the same person, but Krishna in a different mood. That's why Srila Jayadev Goswami has this very interesting prayer called the Dasha Avatar Shloka. And in this prayer, he lists the 10 main incarnations of Krishna, or main avatars. Keshavadrita, Narahari Rupa, Keshavadrita, Shukara Rupa, Keshavadrita, Haladara Rupa, and that's Balaram. But he says, Keshava, you are acting in this particular way, not in a different body, in the same, not in the same body. Krishna is his body. It's not even appropriate to say Krishna's in the same body. Krishna is the same Krishna. And that is actually inconceivable. So let me give an example of 2 times, actually, that Krishna and Balaram had a disagreement. Imagine having a disagreement with yourself. Of course, in the material world, that would be called a MPD, multiple personality disorder. So, one example, which we also spoke about this morning, was when Balaram wanted to have his sister Subhadra married with Duryodhana. In fact, one of Balaram's names is what? Duryodhana Guru. So, I have a godbrother, I mentioned that this morning, whose name is Duryodhana Guru, but unfortunately everyone calls him Duryodhana. Actually, so people, you got to be careful when you give a multi-part name. You know, another disciple, Kamsa Nishudana, everybody calls him Kamsa. So you got to be real careful with these names. So, Balaram is known as Duryodhana Guru. Now, he's Duryodhana's martial arts guru, especially with the club fighting. And this was all the plan of Shakuni. You all know Uncle Shakuni? He said, Balaram, you got to get really close. Duryodhana, you have to get really close with Balaram. And accept him as your guru, and then later on ask him for a favor. And what would that favor be? That you want to marry his sister Subhadra. And there's a reason for that, because when there were alliances between different kingdoms, they were usually done with marriages. And Duryodhana wanted to get the Yadu dynasty on his side so that Krishna could not side with Arjuna and the Pandavas. So this is all a political intrigue. So Balaram falling for this. Now, how could God fall for this? Interesting. He's omniscient. He's omnipresent. He's omnipotent. Right? All these omni things. He's also good. All good. So how could Balaram fall for this? Well, this is Yogamaya. It's a lila, or pastime. That's also why he apparently had a disagreement with Krishna. Okay. So what happens is Balaram goes to Ugrasena, and he says Subhadra is going to marry Duryodhana. Or Ugrasena is saying, it's not a good idea. And, and he makes this plan. In the meantime, Arjuna is basically in exile, but because he's intruded upon Yudhisthira and Draupadi one time, because they were keeping the weapons with them, and they made that deal. If any of the brothers intruded upon their common wife when she was with someone else, they would have to go into exile for some time. So Arjuna was in exile, dressing up as a renunciate. And Krishna wanted Arjuna to marry Subhadra. So what he did is he invited Arjuna over for dinner. The story is there in Prabhupada's Krishna book in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. He invited Arjuna over for dinner, and Balaram was there at the same time, and Subhadra was there at the same time. And Arjuna was looking at Subhadra and making eyes at her. And Balaram didn't notice. He's God, didn't notice. This is Yogamaya. It's amazing. It's amazing, because God is omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent. And so Krishna knew what was going on. And then later on, Krishna said to Arjuna, you should take my chariot and you should kidnap Subhadra. But make sure, Krishna is so tricky, but make sure that Subhadra drives the chariot. So even then, ladies had driver's licenses, and they were trained up. I mean, even at the time of Lord Ramchandra, you had Kaikeyi, who saved Dasarath. She took the reins of the chariot because Dasarath was knocked unconscious at one particular point. So, I mean, there were Kshatriya ladies, Brahmin ladies, Vaishya ladies, etc. So Krishna said to Arjuna, okay, make this arrangement. So he waits, and then he gets Subhadra in the chariot. He has Subhadra drive the chariot. And when, this was actually right before the marriage, because Duryodhana was there at the same time, and he was getting ready to have this Vivaha Yajna. So can you imagine you're sitting in a marriage getting ready to get married to someone, and someone, your prospective bride, gets taken by someone else? It's quite frustrating. So Duryodhana was upset. Balaram was super upset. So Balaram calls all the members, the Kshatriyas at least, of the Yadu dynasty, and says, we got to attack Arjuna. And he just says, let's go. And then he looks around and he sees Krishna just smiling. And he says, what are you doing? And Krishna basically appeases Balaram, and Balaram feels, oh, my God, I've been stopped again or tricked again by Krishna. And that's one time. Another time that happened was that when, at the end of the Battle of Kurukshetra, there was a club fight between Bhimsen and Duryodhana. And of course, as we know, Duryodhana, by Krishna's trick, was invulnerable over his whole body except for the midsection, around the thighs. And so they were fighting, Duryodhana and Bhimsen. And Bhimsen was getting pretty frustrated. He kept hitting Duryodhana, and it was just clang, 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 like hitting metal, basically. And Duryodhana was just smiling. Finally, Krishna motions to Bhimsen, and he pats his thigh. Hit him there, Don't you remember your promise? Because he had promised, Bhimsen had promised, when there's the attempted disrobing of Draupadi, that he would break Duryodhana's thighs. So don't you remember your promise? And then Bhimsen, he takes his club and whacks at Duryodhana's thighs. And of course, Duryodhana's thighs were broken, and he's lying there in exquisite pain. And they actually leave him there, lying there in intense pain. And that was his reaction for offending Draupadi. But Balaram happens to be there at the last moment, because during the battle of Kurukshetra, Balaram just didn't want to take sides. And he said, Krishna, you shouldn't take sides either. So Krishna wasn't allowed to fight, although Krishna fought, even though he wasn't allowed to fight. Krishna's extremely tricky. So he interfered, protected Arjuna, rushed at grandfather Bhishma with the wheel, the chariot wheel. So anyway, Balaram was there, and he said to Bhimsen, okay, if you want to fight with a club, you fight with me. And so he picked up his club. He's known as a club fighter. And Bhimsen was getting ready to, he didn't want to fight with Balaram. He bowed down to Balaram, and then Krishna interfered. Interesting, isn't it? Very, very interesting about this interplay between Balaram and Krishna, where it appears that Balaram is not aware of what's happening. That's called Yoga Maya, the Yoga Maya potency of the Lord. And so this is the interaction between Krishna and Balaram. So let's talk about the appearance of Balaram, since it is, we just gave a little Tattva information. Who is Balaram? He's non-different from Krishna, but for pastime's sake, he appears not to remember that he's non-different from Krishna, and he appears that he has a difference of opinion with Krishna. And, just one other thing I wanted to add that is part of this whole interaction is that Balaram appeared as the older brother of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And generally, for those of you born in Indian families or traditional families, the older brother, elder brother, is supposed to be obeyed. You find in the pastimes of Lord Ram that you have Lakshman, who's the younger brother, and Ram, who's the older brother. And Lakshman just obeys Ram, whatever Ram says, even if Lakshman disagrees with what Ram is asking him to do. Like Ram, Lord Ram. Bankaro. Okay, thank you. So Lord Ram had asked Lakshman to put Sita Devi into the fire after he had rescued Sita Devi. Of course, that was the Maya Sita, we understand that. And the real Sita was held by Agni. But Lakshman didn't want to do that. But he did it. He made a fire. And then when Sita Devi was criticized by some washerman, Lord Ram decided for the peace of the kingdom to send Sita Devi away. And he told Lakshman just to drop her off in the forest outside of the ashram of Valmiki Muni. Could you imagine that? And you have all these interactions. I mean, even at the end of Lord Ram's pastimes, he banishes Lakshman. because Lakshmana interferes when he's speaking to, basically it's Yamaraj, he's speaking to Yamaraj, he interferes for a variety of reasons, not going to get into the pastime. And so you have these interactions. So Lakshmana had requested Lord Ram not to appear anymore as the younger brother, because he didn't want to just follow these instructions. They were just too heavy for him. And they were the same person. You know, little tattva there. Lakshman and Ram, the same person. Krishna, the same person. Balaram's the same person. Nrsimha Bhagawan is the same person. Interesting. Of course, some of the avatars, just to be more precise, are Shaktavesha avatars. Some of the avatars. Like you have Buddha, who is not Vishnu Tattva. So he's not the same person. Keshavadrita Buddha Sharira. He's a different person, but he's empowered. That's called the Shaktavesha avatar. The Shaktavesha avatar, and there's different categories of avatars. You know, Purusha avatars, Shaktavesha avatars. But as far as Lakshman, Ram, Bharat, Shatrughna, Krishna, Balaram, these are all the same persons. Or these person. I'd be careful of the nomenclature. So this is Tattva. Okay, so let's talk about Balaram's appearance. So we understand that, going back a little bit before Balaram's appearance, that Kamsa was very upset when he was driving Devaki and Vasudeva to their home after their marriage. Kamsa was extremely upset because he heard this voice from the air stating that the 8th child of Devaki and Vasudeva is going to kill you. And he wanted to kill Devaki first, but then Vasudeva promised him that he would give him each and every one of the children, and Kamsa could do anything he wanted with the child. So anyway, so fast forward, he gave him the first child, and Kamsa felt a little bit compassionate, thinking, you know, it's supposed to be the 8th child. But then Narada Muni comes, and Narada Muni, what does Narada Muni say? You don't know how these people are counting. They could be counting what? 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Or they could be counting 1, 2, 3. Or they could, who knows what sort of permutations and number games they're playing. So any of these children could be the one who's supposed to kill you. And so Kamsa thought, yeah, he's right. And why did Narada Muni do this? He wanted to accelerate the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And also, guess what? These children were supposed to be killed. Because basically, now we're talking metaphorically, they represent something we call anarthas. Now, anartha, this is very connected to Balaram's appearance, because, anyway, we'll explain in a second. So anartha means things you don't want. Now, basically, for an aspiring spiritualist, what they don't want is what? Kama, Krodha, Mada, Matsarya, Bharibhaya. They don't want lust. Avatam Gadametena, Nagadino Nichivarana, Kama Rupena Kontia, Dushprena, and Elena Cha. Because it just burns you. You're never satisfied. You never get satisfied with lust. It's just like throwing gasoline on a fire. They don't, and they want to get rid of what? Anger. I mean, anger doesn't make you happy. At least it doesn't make me happy. Greed. Because you want something, you're not satisfied. Whereas a devotee is what? Tushanti cha ramanti cha. How do you become satisfied? Machata magata prana. Bodhyantas cha parasparam. Katyantas chabam nityam. Tushanti cha ramanti cha. By hearing and chanting about Krishna with the devotees. That's how you become satisfied. So basically, kama krodha mada matsarya, illusion. Nobody's satisfied with illusion or madness, or fear, anxiety. Anxiety is caused by the duality of this world. The temporary nature of this world, the difference between the body and the soul. Bhayam, fear, like that. So these 6 sons that were killed by Kamsa, one after the other, were representative, and also personally they were cursed to be killed by their father, who was Kamsa, and Kamsa's previous birth was Kalanemi, who was killed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Narada Muni told Kamsa, you were killed by God in the last life, and you were Kalanemi. So they were cursed by, who they cursed by? Hiranyakashipu. Because Hiranyakashipu, even though he worshipped Lord Brahma, was so envious that someone else had worshipped Lord Brahma without his permission. These Sadgarbhas. And so he cursed them, so they were supposed to be killed because of this curse. Of course, later on, fast forward in Krishna's pastimes, they got liberated because Krishna was able to bring them back from death, and they were able to drink. This is later on, after Krishna went to Dwarka. In Mathura. And Krishna went to Mathura, so they were able to drink the breast milk of Devaki after they were brought back from death. And that breast milk is prasadam, because Krishna had drunk that breast milk. And so, prasadam. What is prasadam? Prasadam means the Lord's remnants, right? So, they took the Lord's remnants. Very, very interesting. So, anyway, so these 6 represent the anarthas. So, therefore, the indication is before the Supreme Lord can manifest, one has to get rid of anarthas, right? Unwanted things. And the methodology for getting rid of the anarthas is to approach Balaram. Balaram is the original guru. Nayamatma balahinena labdwa. That nobody makes any spiritual advancement without the mercy of Balaram. And of course, in this day and age, we understand Balaram, Hoila, Nitai. Balaram has appeared as Nityananda. So, and Balaram empowers the bona fide guru to give you Krishna. So after these 6 were killed, Balaram actually appeared in the womb of Devaki. Now, it's very interesting. So, but after the 6 were killed, little history here. This is some of this information is from the Gopal Champu. After these 6 were killed, Rohini, who was also in Mathura at that time, she wasn't in Vrindavan. She stayed in Mathura until after those 6 were killed. That's how she got pregnant. Because some people don't understand the story. They think that, she went to Vrindavan right in the beginning. And also, one may say, well, Vasudeva and Devaki were in prison. It was more or less like house arrest. You have the film that they were chained up like that. Not accurate. They actually were under house arrest. Everybody knows what house arrest is? Yeah. House arrest means you got to stay in your house. What? COVID time. Well, this is strict. They had guards at the door and everything like that. So, Rohini, who is the mother of Balaram, was also with them. So that's how she got pregnant. Because if she'd gone to Vrindavan, it wouldn't have happened like that. So she was like 2 or 3 months pregnant, and Devaki was 2 or 3 months pregnant. And then Vasudeva, I think phones should be kept off. Thank you. So Vasudeva sent her to Vrindavan to be under the care of Nanda and Yashoda. Because Vasudeva and Nanda Maharaj were half brothers, right? By different ladies. Vasudeva's mother was a Kshatriya, and Nanda Maharaj's mother was a Vaishya. But they were half brothers. That's their relationship. So they're taking care of Rohini. So what happened, and this story is quite esoteric, because we understand that Balaram, in his original aspect in Vrindavan, never leaves Vrindavan like Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. Now that may come as a shock to you. Krishna never leaves Vrindavan, so what's he doing in Dwarka? What's he doing in Mathura? Well, that's Vasudeva Krishna, an expansion of Krishna, and it's very esoteric. And there's Nanda Nandana and Vasudeva Krishna. So, same thing with Balaram. So, what happened is, all right, let's talk about Krishna's appearance. I guess we could talk about Krishna's appearance, is that Yashodamai, and then we'll go back and talk about Balaram's appearance. Yashodamai actually gave birth to Krishna. And Krishna's expansion, Vasudeva Krishna, when he was brought to Vrindavan, entered whatever. I mean, it's hard to find the right word. And they were the same person. But they're the same person anyway in a different mood. So if you try to understand it, it is a chincha. The whole thing is inconceivable. So don't project your mundane understanding upon these different pastimes, because you won't be able to understand it. Just hear and accept with faith. So a similar thing happened to Balaram. So what happened was that Devaki was pregnant with Balaram, and Krishna called for Yogamaya. Again, there's Yogamaya. And he said to Yogamaya, transfer Balaram, or transfer the child in the womb, to the womb of Rohini, who's in Vrindavan at this particular point. So then the same thing occurred. Krishna never leaves Vrindavan in his original aspect, and Balaram never leaves Vrindavan in his original aspect. This is very esoteric. So then it's described that Rohini remained pregnant for like 14 months. That's a long time. And then she gave birth to Balaram 8 days before Yashodamai gave birth to Krishna, before Vasudeva Krishna was transferred by Vasudeva to Vrindavan. So that all happened 8 days. So Balaram is 8 days older than Krishna, and they had their same name-giving ceremony. Because if he had been a year older than Krishna, they wouldn't have had the same name-giving ceremony by Garga Muni. So that's the miracle of the appearance of Balaram. So now I'm going to give a little slideshow. I guess everybody can see the slideshow. Gave some tattva, gave some stories, and we'll finish up with this little slideshow about Lord Balaram. So we're going to quote from Jayadev Goswami's Dasha Avatar Shloka, which is contained within the Gita Govinda. The Gita Govinda, of course, is a very esoteric literature dealing with mostly with the intimate pastimes of Krishna. So this shloka starts, Vahasi Vapushi Vishate Vasanam Jaladhavam, which means you wear on your brilliant white body, because Balarama is white, garments that are the color of a fresh blue rain cloud. Balaram wears blue garments. And it's interesting, Radharani also wears blue garments, because that's the color of Krishna. And Krishna wears what color garments? Does anyone know? Yellow, because that's the color of Radharani. So, and then halahati vita milita yamuna bhyam. And so this is a pastime in which when Balaram was dancing his rasa dance with his own group of gopis, he was transcendently intoxicated by the Varuni beverage. And he called the Yamuna to come. And she didn't come. And guess what happened? He got angry. And he dragged the Yamuna to him. And to this day, Prabhupada comments, you can see the markings of Balaram's plow, where he was dragging the Yamuna to him. And eventually she conceded and agreed to let Balaram have his pastimes in the Yamuna. Keshavadrita Haradara Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hari. And of course, this is the respects to Keshava. Keshava means Krishna with long black hair. You are appearing. Sometimes the translation is, you've accepted the form, but it's not that he took the form. Try to understand the tattva there. Very, very important. You are appearing as Balaram, who's the wielder of the plow. All glories to the Lord of the universe. Jaya Jagadisha Hare. And here's the whole. Vahasiva Pushiva Shadeva Shadam Jaladabam Halahati Vita Milita Yamunabhyam Keshavadrita Haradara Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare. So let's talk about Balaram's name, Rama. Whoops. Oh, it's here. So in the Padma Purana is an interesting quote. Ramante yoginam nante. Transcendentalists take pleasure in the unlimited true pleasure of spiritual existence. So we all want to have that sort of happiness or pleasure. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness, realized through transcendental senses. This is freedom from all miseries coming from material contact. So we all want that Rama's spiritual bliss. Now Rama's referring to spiritual bliss. Unlimited spiritual strengths. So how do we get that spiritual strength? What are the benefits of having spiritual strength? It's interesting. What's in it for me, as they say, with him? You know what a with him is? What's in it for me? And who gives it to us? And how do we develop and exhibit spiritual strength? Now, many of us think that you just pray to Balaram and you get spiritual strength. And it's more than that. You got to do something. Like Balaram, I'm getting ahead of myself since we're not going to have much time. So Balaram killed two prominent deities, not deities, but demons. Palambasura was one of them. And what was the other one? Dhanakasura. So Bhakti Vinod Thakur, this great acharya, states that the demons killed by Balaram, representing lust, false pride, indicate that with spiritual strength and intelligence, one has to endeavor. Sometimes people think spiritual life means you just pray, Krishna, take away all my anarthas. You wake up the next morning and all your anarthas are gone. It's like Novocaine. It doesn't work like that. You have to be aware. Just like the story of Balaram's appearance, you had these 6 garbhas, the Shad garbhas: lust, anger, greed, illusion, envy. And they all had to be killed before Krishna and Balaram could manifest themselves. So we have to work on these things very hard. Okay, so we require spiritual strength to advance in devotional service. And spiritual strength allows us to connect to Krishna and Balaram. And Balaram is the source of all bliss. So Balaram, incidentally, I didn't mention this, Balaram is in charge of the Sandini Shakti. Sandini, we have Sat, Chit, and Nanda, right? That's Sat. That's the existential potency. Maintaining the spiritual world, maintaining the material world in his expansion as Sesha Nag. So we have problems in this world. We're forced to act, as Arjuna says. How is it, or why is it, or by what are we forced to act as if impelled by lust, by impelled to sinful acts? And Krishna answers, Kama Esha, that it is lust only which comes from the material mode of passion, later transformed into wrath, which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. And it's by spiritual strength we can conquer it. You know, so we have to build up our spiritual muscles. Actually, in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where Arjuna mentions that the mind is restless, impossible to control, like the wind, Krishna says, by constant practice. That's how we applied Balaram's mercy. So who gives us spiritual strength? And what is spiritual strength? Of course, Krishna says, I am the strength of the strong, devoid of passion and desire, free of passion. And we all know the demon Pralamba, as we mentioned before, represents passion. Why do we say he represents passion? Because we'll go fast through this thing. Anyway, and Dainikasura represents ignorance. We say the Pralambasura represents passion because passion masquerades as love. But Pralambasura was masquerading as what? Anyone know? Coward boy. An innocent coward boy just playing with Krishna. And Dainikasura, of course, represents ignorance. So Balarama is the source of spiritual strength. Just quick. One cannot attain the supreme platform of self-realization without being sufficiently favored by Balarama. Bala does not mean physical strength. One must have spiritual strength, which is infused by Balaram. And Balaram, or Sankarshan, is the source of spiritual power, the original spiritual master. And Lord Nityananda is the incarnation of Balaram, the original spiritual master, and the spiritual master is the representative of Balaram. We talked about this before. So, Lord Balaram appears as Lord Nityananda. So, here's the story of Pralambasura. Okay. The coward boys were playing, but this demon who appeared to be a coward boy, like lust appears to be what? Love. Right? Anyway, I'm not saying this just because I'm a sannyasi. Sorry about this. And just like a what? A wolf in what? Sheep's clothing. Oh my God. That's what lust is. It's a wolf. Avratam Ganametena Gyanayant Nichavirana. So they're playing, and you know, the cowboys are playing, and they're having some sort of fight, and the winner of the fight gets carried away by, on the back of those people who are losing the fight. They played games, winners rode on the backs of the losers. You know, the coward boys having a good old time. So what happened is that Balaram's party lost, and Krishna's party won. And on Krishna's party was this Pralambasura. So Pralambasura, who represents passion or lust, carries Balaram far away from Krishna. And so Balaram notes, as this demon assumes his original form, he says, my, how this carrier has changed. Woo! And of course, he hits him and wipes him out. So, that's one of the stories. So, as I said before, taking Balaram's mercy means taking the instruction of the Guru and controlling your senses. It's not just an easy thing. It takes a lot of work. And so let's talk now about the next demon. So once upon a time, Krishna and Balaram started to herd the cows on Gopastami. That's the day they were allowed to herd the cows. And they blessed the land with the distinct marks of their lotus feet. And Even the bees followed Balaram to his confidential pastimes. The bees wanted to taste Balaram's sweetness. And so the coward boys, they played all these different games. Krishna and Balaram acted as if they were animals who were afraid of tigers. Krishna even served his older brother by massaging his older brother's feet. But the coward boys wanted to go to the Tala forest, Talavan, to eat the Tala fruits. And so they told Krishna to do that. So they all went there to the Tala forest, and there were demons there, these big jackass demons. Sorry if I use that word. Donkeys. Big donkeys or whatever. And so Balarama, in order to get some fruit, shook the tree, which made the fruit fall, and shook all the other trees in turn, and they were getting all this fruit. And then Dhenukasura came, kicked Balaram in the chest, and Balaram got so angry that he took him by the tail, whirled him around, and threw him into a tree. And in the same way, Krishna also participated in this afterwards, and he also killed all of Dhenukasura's friends and threw them all into the trees, and it looked like they were donkey trees. So the idea is that by killing demons like Pralamba, passion, and Dhenuka, ignorance, Balaram exhibits spiritual strength. So the question is, which I answered previously, what does it mean that Balaram, the original spiritual master, gives us spiritual strength? And Prabhupada answers in a lecture on the Srimad Bhagavatam. Spiritual strength means to have good faith in Krishna and Guru, and Balaram is the original Guru. That is spiritual strength. So one has that faith. What is that? Shraddha, Shabde, Vishas, Shakahe, Sudrita, Nishchaya. If one has that firm faith that simply by doing what Krishna wants, everything will be accomplished, then one will do it. I mean, for example, if I had firm faith by investing in a certain company in the stock market, I would make millions of dollars. I'd probably do it, but I don't have firm faith. That's why I never invested in the stock market. That's why I never bought coins, cyber coins, bitcoins, or anything like that, because it's gambling. So spiritual strength, and here Prabhupada says spiritual strength means Shraddha. And that spiritual strength, intelligence comes, Krishna says, I'm the intelligence of everyone, comes by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and following the rules and regulations. Another lecture by Prabhupada. Spiritual strength means sadhana or practice. As I mentioned before, Krishna says in the 6th chapter of the Gita, by constant practice, when Arjuna tells him the mind is difficult to control. So getting spiritual strength from Balaram is something we must think, feel, and do. Shraddha and sadhana. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes regarding these two demons, Dhenukasura and Pralambasura, there are two demons killed by Krishna, but the common contaminations they represent will have to be removed by dint of the devotee's own endeavors. This is one of the secret mysteries of Braja Bhakti. It's Bhaktivinoda Thakur. If one endeavors in a humble mood, Krishna will certainly show his mercy. Then upon the awakening of the mood of Sri Baladev in the devotee's heart, these contaminations will be removed. And we're almost finished. Ramante yogina nante, a yogi gets unlimited pleasure through spiritual strength. Spiritual strength brings us closer to Krishna and Balaram, further from illusion. The strength comes from Balaram, the original Guru, who takes pleasure in using his strength to kill passion, pralamba, and ignorance, Dhenukasura. And we get that, this is just a summary. We get that spiritual strength through Shraddha, having faith, trust, implicit, and sadhana, practice. That's how we get that. And this is the next to the last one again. Vahasi vapushi vishate vasanam jaladabam alahati vita milita yamunabhyam kesavadrita nadara rupa jaya jagadisha hare. O Kesava, Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who have assumed the form of Balaram, the wielder of the plow, all glory is to you. On your brilliant white body you wear garments the color of a fresh blue rain cloud. Those garments are colored like the beautiful dark hue of the river Yamuna, who feels great fear due to the striking of your plowshare. Krishna Balaram ki jai. Okay, just timing's perfect. Pretty good. So now we have what? The Abhishek? Are we ready or? Okay. Otherwise, the kirtan. Then you should have a kirtan. Because we're finished. All glories to His divine grace, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, by whose mercy we're able to understand Balaram. What's that? I'm trying to avoid getting exposed as much as possible, so why don't we just have a kirtan? Yeah, I mean, she could share her stories, but I think because I have some medical procedures this week, I'm going to avoid the crowds right now. So you have to excuse me. I have to be careful. So either we have Kamalini can tell some stories, or we give her the microphone. So why don't you give her the microphone?
Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Gena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. I was born in the darkness